Hello and welcome everybody to Exponential Potential Podcast. And we have my favorite type of call, although I can't really say that because we have fabulous guests too, but the easiest type of flowing call for the most part with my fabulous co-host, Claire Oatway. And this theme for the next few weeks is all about being stuck and procrastinating. And today we are talking about and asking you the question, are you stuck in a toxic work environment? Because many people are.
Many people are. Yeah, definitely. It's the yeah.
And Claire, Claire is an expert leadership and consultant for corporates, for leaders, clearly, and focusing mostly on women. So she knows a lot about this topic, and she is highly expert. That's not even a word, but one of her expertise and her geniuses lies in changing that toxic environment into something that's much, well, non-toxic, really, and to flourish and to have great teams that work together. So, Claire, welcome and thank you.
And it's really funny. I've been playing with this recently around kind of almost being a corporate healer. Except I don't think corporates are ready for that. But essentially, that's what it is. It's just like, okay, don't have to chuck everything out. We can just change some stuff, help the flow, bring in some creativity, start lifting, and making a massive difference. So yeah, thanks. And it's such a juicy area this month. I love it.
Yes, and I think with I actually really love that title, corporate healer, corporate healing, because when if you think about being in a one-on-one individual relationship, because that's what work's about, isn't it? Being in a toxic relationship means that the relationships that you have within your workplace are really toxic, and I think if we look at ourselves when we are in a toxic relationship in our personal lives, the healing aspect is really key. So why not corporate healing? Yeah. Corporate healer. Love it.
Yeah. So, sorry, go on. And I just want to own the word toxic as well, because there will be people listening who are like, oh, toxic, that's really, really, really damaged. But again, when you think about the body, okay, so say I'm pruning the roses and I get a thorn in my finger. Now I know that that thorn hurts, and I know it's punctured the skin, and I know that I need to get it out, otherwise it's an infection. And if the infection spreads, then I might have to chop my entire arm off. but kind of just that tiny bit of toxic is there from the start. So when we use the word toxic workplace, it's it's intended to own the word toxic, as opposed to toxic doesn't mean you have to. It doesn't mean it's irreversible. It doesn't mean that it's going to everybody, and it's it doesn't mean that. It's just there's some aspects of relationships, of power play, of dynamics that are just stopping people from moving forward and doing what they're meant to do and everything else.
Being effective, and actually enjoying the workplace. Enjoying the environment. So how have you seen how stuck shows that? So we're talking about toxic environments, or so how do you see that people getting stuck? How does it show up in their team? How does it show up in their business?
Well, and this is something that I've experienced firsthand, as well as steered organisations through. Whenever there's a time of change, sometimes you can go into the team and describe where you want the team to go, and as a leader, that you're investing in the skills development, you're investing in taking away the stress of the team. Kind of this is a positive shift forward. But sometimes teams can be stuck, particularly if they're quite closed. And sometimes if there's familiarity. Sometimes that familiarity can mean that change is bad, and that kind of is a little bit of negativity, or very often in groups, and often sadly with women, you can have like one or two personalities who are like drains. You have radiators in life and you have drains, and sometimes you have people who's just their personality can suck the life force out of you. They don't essentially do it. And similarly, you can have these team environments where insecurity gets played out in a different way. So insecurity can get played out in judgment or criticism or bitchiness or competition. And again, it's just this from the observer, from the outsider looking in, there's this negativity that doesn't seem to serve anybody. That is like everyone's playing to the lowest common denominator. But when you're in the team itself, you feel like a tribe, you feel like a family, you feel connected, and you kind of perhaps not aware that those dynamics are playing out, or the impact that those dynamics can have on you as a person, and your morale and your happiness at work, your productivity at work even. It can be difficult to see. So for me, sometimes kind of toxicity and stepness comes when you create that working environment, but there's just a couple of unchecked behaviors that are bringing everybody down.
Yeah, I feel that. I've been in those environments. And it can just take one person.
Yeah.
And lack of self-awareness on their part as well, isn't it? It's like they're not really understanding how they're impacting everybody. They think I used to have a boss actually, and he ruled by fear, and he thought that was the best way to get his team to do what he wanted to do. So total lack of self-awareness. And I ended up leaving.
Kind of from a sense of empathy, that's the belief system that he grew up in. And corporates, with their culture, they kind of reinforce these belief systems that that's how you rule, or that's how you behave at times. Or it might be that his parent or his grandparent had that approach, or it's something reserved. So it's not necessarily him as a person. And similarly, that's why I was really careful to say this, because we all have complex lives in work and at home, and stuff happens. Stuff happens behind the scenes. So it's quite natural that when you spend so much time in the workplace, you bring some of that through. Which is why I'm always cautious around judgment, and trying to understand what's underneath it, and then trying to take away the power of that. Confidence in particular is one of the areas. And so I've worked in many different environments, and in some environments, lack of self-esteem, a lack of self-worth or confidence kind of can lead to quite aggressive bullying behavior, or aggressive attitudes, or management are doing that to us again. It's like, hang on, just stop. Let's do you first, and then stop building out again, and the world will be a happier place.
There we go.
Sorry. Claire's Nugget 101.
So why do you think that playing it safe can keep you trapped? Oft on a different topic.
That's a brilliant question, and I loved our interview last week around this concept of stuck and procrastination, and very often we think by not doing something we're not doing something, but actually we don't realize that by not doing something we're making an active choice. Doing nothing is not inactive. I'm playing with double negatives there. You're consciously deciding not to do something. And so if you've got an options appraisal and do nothing as an option, actually, that's a conscious decision to do nothing. But within a team environment, or even as you're managing your own career, or as you're managing your task list, you've got things on there that you're not getting to. Actually, you're consciously and deliberately choosing that.
Mm.
And particularly, this comes through really strongly around this do nothing aspect. It comes through really strongly when you're trying to make changes to processes or to team dynamics, where you might bring in a new piece of technology, or there's a new process, or there's a new market, and people get comfortable at work, and often kind of some of those changes can get pushed back on. It's like, well, why are you bringing in that, and why are you bringing in that? And I think what many people don't see, that I see, is that they sort of feel like if they keep doing exactly what they've done, they'll keep getting that success. But actually, the world around them is growing and changing, and the universe is expanding all of the time. You can see that in every different aspect of life, and so everything is changing around us, whether or not we like it. And so, if we make a decision to stay the same, we're kind of inviting in decay at times. Even though it feels safe, we're
Mhm.
kind of slipping back behind what's going on elsewhere. Um, and that may be okay, but it's a conscious choice you have to make.
And I think it would, what sort of, if you look at that as I'm just going to stay safe, but what are the impacts of that if you do decide I'm just going to play safe and stay here? What's the impact, one, to that person, but also how does it affect the team?
So the impacts can be that people's skills become devalued, that there could be commercial impacts on a business. It could be that they miss out on opportunities to shape what's going on. And probably the best example that I can give is roughly 2 years ago. I was doing work with schools leaders around AI, and
Mhm.
I'd created a scenario really around schools being wholly AI driven, and the idea was that it was provocative. It would really force you to think about where technology is going and the impact that it would have. And for some schools leaders, they were like, I haven't got time for this. I'm too busy here. I've got children at the gate whose parents are drug abusing, or they're fighting in
Mm.
the street, or I've got Ofsted coming in. I haven't got time to talk about this abstract AI thing that's going on. Well, you know, roll forward now by 2 years, and AI is dominating nearly every headline and having a really significant impact on how we're operating. But for those schools leaders, yes, I appreciate how busy they are, but actually it's a bit of a lost opportunity to grab hold, to start to explore and be creative and start to shape and consider, um, and determine kind of the impacts, as opposed to be subject to the impact. I think
Mhm.
you surrender, you surrender some of the power over to other people if you don't choose to act.
Mhm. You kind of get left behind or
Yeah,
out of touch with what's actually going on.
yeah,
And
yeah,
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 and that of course will affect, and it would also, I would imagine, affect your confidence levels, and you said the value that you have, because
yeah,
your skills are becoming null and void almost, because you've not kept up with what's happening in your industry. I mean, you just look at blockbusters, that's kind of
yeah,
an example, isn't it, that they stayed safe in that they
yeah,
stuck to what they knew, which is sometimes a good thing, but they didn't look forward, and they were, we're comfortable here,
yeah.
and you know, boom, Netflix.
Yeah, and if you go back to the the guy in the office that you were talking about, he may have gone to an amazing business school that taught him that's the way that you act. That's, back in the 90s when we were driven by performance, and
Yes.
LG was sacking 10% of the workforce in order to drive up productivity, push, 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 push. That was the dominant management theory. And so, he'd probably been schooled in that, and then his patterns of behavior kept reinforcing that. But maybe he'd never been challenged either from internal challenge or from external to consider whether or not that belief system still works, to unlearn some of the tricks, before learning new ones. And for me, this evolution has to be constant. The growth has to be constant.
Yeah, and that sort of leads on to other people's emotions and the power plays and the belief systems, as you sort of touched on it a bit there about the belief systems, and how that impacts the team or the work environment.
Yeah. Well, businesses and teams, in my opinion, you have to start with the concept that businesses are really quite complex human systems. You have relationships, you have dynamics, you have belief systems. We've been picking up, anxiety, stress, fear, power. All of this is going on within the community, and all of it plays out. And at the moment, kind of one of the latest TED talks I'm seeing is to strip away hierarchy, and then distribute leadership across a network, and everyone will be happy and everyone will thrive. Yes, and all of those little behaviors that naturally occur when you have a group of humans working together will also thrive. So
Yes.
how do you check those out? Because the people do bring their emotions to work. People do bring their reactions very often into the workplace. They do have quite an impact on the team that's around them. Others have power play, and it's not just a male or a masculine trait. Kind of competition and gathering resources, fighting your cause, as it were, is quite common, particularly as you start to move to a more corporate environment. And people can get caught in the middle of that. Now, sometimes you stop and you think, is it me? Is it me? And some people feel quite it kind of knocks their own self-confidence, because they don't necessarily step back and see what's happening around them. And sometimes people aren't aware that they're bringing all of that into the workplace, and they're devastated. I've worked with different leaders, and they kind of they're so focused on the positive outcome, and they think they've had a busy day, so they've done that, and they think that they've done good, but they've not necessarily seen the path of devastation that's gone behind them after. And you raise that with them in an open adult conversation, they just hadn't realised. They really hadn't realised the impact that they have on others. So that's probably why kind of this toxicity is quite common in more workplaces than we admit. And that's probably, and thinking about it, is why kind of I'm keen to consider like a spectrum of toxicity. Kind of this pure, untouched world that's being painted. It just feels like it's not necessarily achievable. I am now a cynic for sure. but someone who's kind of seen people together and all of their wonder and all of their grace and all of their creativity and all of their strength, and also all of the ways that they trip themselves up and other people around them.
Hmm. And I mean, ultimately, we surely most of us want to actually enjoy enjoy being at work, because we spend a huge amount of our time in the workplace, 40, 60, 70 hours a week, some 80 hours, some people, which is insane. So surely underneath, people actually want to enjoy their work. And I think that's a choice as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do we want to create, and as you say, some people aren't clearly not aware of the impact they have on people. So is that a good question to ask a team or a business? Do you actually want to enjoy coming into work? Do you want to make this an enjoyable environment?
Yeah. So I've taken part in numerous kind of experiments and pilots and initiatives, and one of them was around a new design for healthcare and healthcare systems, and kind of one of the national leaders was calling for joy in the workplace and joy in healthcare. Actually, like,
Wow.
yes,
Yes.
yes, absolutely. And kind of lots of the national policy been about the triple gain. So the triple gain is, got to reduce costs, got to reduce costs. We've got to improve the quality of care that we offer to patients, of course, and we've got to improve effectiveness of outcomes. So cancer treatment has to be the very best cancer treatment. It has to be delivered well, and it has to be delivered cheaply. Essentially, that
Hmm.
triple aim is true within healthcare, and you could probably transfer that to other environments. But one of the things that gets forgotten is actually the joy that needs to come into that workplace to attract other people into the workplace, to help people to cope with the stresses and the demands, to and people have joy in a workplace. It's generally a good marker that they feel safe.
Hmm. And they become more effective
Yeah, yeah,
and
they're more
productive
creative.
because they're
Absolutely.
happier.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
We know
Um,
it.
oh, I know. It's it's crazy, but the number of times I make like a daft joke, or Enzo will pop up in a Zoom call and he'll be like,
Yeah,
"He's here. I'm
yeah,
sorry."
yeah,
Whereas in the
yeah.
past, oh, Siri's going to answer again. Whereas in the past, I'd been mortified about how that looked and whether or not it was
Mhm.
professional, or kind
Mm.
of whether it was serious enough, because workplace is a serious workplace. No. Okay, I found this on the web, but whereas the past I've been mortified about how professional.
Is that Alexa? Alexa
Yeah,
joining us.
yeah, crazy, crazy, crazy. But just trying to bring a bit of levity, just try to bring detachment. Very often we can get so absorbed in our work, it becomes an extension of our identity, kind of, or the feedback is a mortal wounding, and it doesn't have to be. We can let go of that.
Yeah, and it also has a big impact on our value.
Yeah,
We see work um, as added. That's how we value ourselves, through the amount of work that we do and what we do at work. And we know that that's not true,
yeah.
because we already are valuable. We
Oh,
already have value. But then that's where workaholicism comes from as well, isn't it? When you become a workaholic, it's because you see that that's where you feel valued, or that's where you have value in your
yeah,
own mind.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
So
And I know. Oh, sorry. I
yeah,
was
no,
going to say
go.
I know that at times, uh, kind of, I felt more stress as a boss, as a leader, when I've been responding to other people's drama, and I've been positioned and I'm reacting. Oh, God, so someone would come into me and go, "Do, do, 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 do," about, right, okay, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of the day, I
So
go,
basically, someone will come and tell you, I just want to do this for the audio because you might not know what you're doing. But basically, someone comes in and goes rah to you and has a go at you and puts their drama and energy onto you, and then that you're carrying and then putting that on somebody else.
But yeah, and kind of, I think we've talked about parent, adult, child before, but sometimes when you're a leader or in a management position, people bring that, and then you automatically strip into, I'm going to solve this problem, I'm going to tell them off, I'm going to do that, I'm going to react, I'm going to caretake, I'm going to protect. And you shift into a parent role when actually that keeps, it's not your drama. it's kind of their drama. You don't need to take on that stress. You don't need to take on all of that emotion, that energy. Whereas actually kind of the most effective thing you can do is be still and try to stay in that balanced adult position. And the number of times that my day has been more stressful because I haven't caught that I'm reacting sooner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really important to underline, is that kind of, and again, when people come into work, they've got a plan about where they're going to go, and they go not sideways, and that's what leads to additional stress, and that can be from tasks, but more often than not, it's people's emotions that can wreck your day.
Yeah, you can kind of see it as a tornado, can't you? Or a whirlwind. Someone comes in, they've had a bad morning, or they've had a download from a boss above them. So their energy comes in and sort of spins everybody up, unsettles everybody. Whereas if you just, as you say, you just say, okay, and you again, it's that awareness, isn't it? And that consciousness of, okay, this is their stuff, not mine. This is their drama, not mine. If everybody got caught up in that drama, which is that reaction, which is very easy to do, then the whole room then becomes really, the whole team becomes unsettled. And then who's effective then in that setting, in that energy?
Yeah. And the ideal situation is that you have enlightened bosses who understand themselves and understand their reactions. That would be absolutely amazing.
I love the sound of an enlightened boss, an enlightened boss, an enlightened employer. Although there are actually more people, conscious leaders, which is what you're talking about, isn't it? Really?
Which is fantastic. Definitely. And what I want to do, though, is I want to give everybody that sense of power that they can choose. They can choose to observe all of that energy. They can choose to go, oh, I wonder what's underneath that. What's really driving that? Okay, so my boss is probably been told off by their boss, or they're feeling under pressure because of this. Okay, well, I can solve that bit. I can't solve their moods necessarily. I could try to, but I'm more effective at changing this path by focusing on that little problem that they're not aware of. They're shouting all the time. It's like, right, let's keep getting to the root cause. Let's keep understanding that, or let's keep detaching and going, oh, it's their energy. I don't need it. I don't want it. It's not going to help me do my job any better.
Yeah, and it's that awareness, isn't it? And that just pause. Just takes a pause, doesn't it? It's not you don't need 5 minutes. It's just literally sort of sitting back in your chair and observing it rather than engaging.
Yeah.
Reacting. Yeah. Which leads us on really nicely to picking up on other people's energy. So coping in a business or in a team when you're an empath. So firstly, I think might be helpful to describe briefly what an empath is.
So for me, an empath is somebody who is attuned, who feels other people's emotions to differing levels. And I think, one aspect that many people can relate to is the illustration that you gave. When you can feel the difference when you go in a room, or when a boss comes in and the mood shifts very quickly, and people within the room they can already understand what's going on, or you can understand where things are high and low. Um, so empath isn't necessarily some super skill. I think kind of people have the skill to different levels, but it's this sense of picking up on other people's energies. And my example is sometimes when I go into the office and there's a lot of drama, it's exhausting. It's
Mhm.
tiring. I feel it in my back. I'm like, oh. Or in a call that's an hour call, there's a lot of drama that's going on. You're kind of like, oh, you're sucked in.
Mhm.
And some of it is around the cognitive bit and understanding what's going on and kind of communication and negotiation. But some of it is just that person has pushed all of their energy out, and you're just worn down by it.
Mhm.
It's yeah,
And you're right in terms of levels. Some people will, and I know I do when I'm working with clients that are feeling certain ways, I will actually feel how they feel. So I will feel anxiety in my stomach. I will, as you say, you're feeling. So there's two different things that an empath does. Um, just to expand on what an empath is, one is to pick up on other people's energies and emotions and carry it in their body.
yeah.
And the other is
Sorry.
to actually physically feel in your body what they're feeling. So you physically feel their emotions, or you might physically feel a headache.
Yeah.
So when I'm in my zone, when I'm in my healing zone, or when I'm in my zone before I start to speak to a client, I might wake up. If I've got a client early in the morning, I might wake up feeling anxiety, and I'm thinking, hang on a minute, why am I feeling anxious? What's that about? And then because of what I know, I realize actually this is not mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it happens to, lots of different people on more, I think it happens more than we think it happens. Some people are very aware that they're an empath. Some people aren't. So some people really carry, if someone's upset and crying, that an empath will really feel that sadness and carry it and also feel really, really sad and probably end up crying too.
Mm.
But they're not sure why.
Yep.
Or they if they're having a conversation, they know why, because they are, but they're not, what they don't realize is that actually that doesn't have to happen.
Yeah.
To help somebody and to be of assistance to somebody else and to make a positive impact on somebody else, you do not have to feel what they're feeling. For me, it's helpful when I'm coaching or when I'm healing to know to feel it in my body. But then it doesn't stay there. It's almost like it's just making me aware of something.
Like a signal.
Yes. Yes. Exactly like a signal.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So what are some
So
of the things that you do, I can answer this question as well, but what are some of the things that you do in a team environment when you feel that way, when you feeling that that you're carrying either in your back, your shoulders, you've got a headache, you've got stomach ache, you're just achy, because a lot of aches and pains that we feel are through those stresses, they're through those feelings and emotions.
absolutely, um, and I think it's taken me some time to appreciate, because when you're busy, you assume that all of the stress is your stress. So you
Mm.
assume that all of the aches are your aches because you're pushing yourself. You're kind of this, you're out of sync with who you are. But it's something that I've noticed increasingly in working environments. It's like, oh, hang on, whether it's people might pick it up as intuition or a feeling. It's like, what's not, something's not right here. Something's not right here. And sometimes, depending on the situation, sometimes I'll try to call it out. So I'll use it to start the conversation, to start to push back, to start to kind of relieve the emotion elsewhere, because it has an impact on me as well. But it's just like, okay, you almost use it as a signal to say, I need to act for this person, or I need to look at this a different way, or this person is being aggressive because they're hurt. Kind of just bringing curiosity and challenge into the conversation to shift the dynamic. For myself, at times, it can be that download. It can just be that, let it all settle at the end of the day. I'm in a place at the moment, and the guy's like, well, you can park on site. It's like, no, I'll park around the corner, it's fine. Just like a few minutes of actual air outside,
Bit of
and the
space.
ability to just decompress. It's so important, and that rest can make a difference. But what about you? Because very practical skills in terms of your healing. You must come across these emotions all the time.
One of the first questions I ask myself and my clients is this mine? Because sometimes you don't know if it's yours, especially when you're not practiced at it. And then the next question is, or what percentage of this is yours, and what percentage of this is somebody else's? And just knowing that, and usually it could be sort of 80-20 or 50-50, or usually the numbers that come to mind are very accurate. And knowing that 70% of this is not mine already relieves that. And then the next question is, well, what can I do about it? Show me, what can I, and you ask that question, and is there anything for me to do right now to relieve this? Is there a conversation that I need to have? Because sometimes, yes, have a conversation, but sometimes that other person isn't ready to hear you. Or and then absolutely to understand what that other person, have some compassion for that other person, because they're obviously going through something. So it may be that you don't have that conversation at that time, but you just have compassion for them. And compassion and empathy are slightly different. Compassion is where you can be there for somebody, or be there in a situation, but not carry the situation, not feel the situation in your body. And that again takes practice. The other thing that you can do that's really spiritual, and maybe a bit woo-woo for some people, but for some of our listeners that are open to spirituality and curious, or are spiritual, I love this exercise for people, and I've seen it happen and work time and time again, is you visualize that you're in a bubble. And if people are into crystals, you can even either use a crystal, or imagine you have a crystal in your hand like a wand, and you draw this bubble around yourself. And you draw it so that it's a couple of feet above. In fact, it's sort of the length of your arm. So you put your arm up straight, and you physically, it's like setting an intention, but you physically draw the circle around yourself, and you go a couple of feet below your feet. Now, if you're in an office and you don't want to do that, then just visualize it, because what you're doing is you're setting an intention, you're setting the energy. So you create a full circle around your body, and you fill it with pure unconditional love and light. So you tune into your heart, you feel the love in your heart. Don't focus on a particular person at that time. or certainly not the person that's just upset you, or potentially could upset you because there's too many negativity, too much negativity around that. But just think of something that you love. Maybe it's, you know, a child, maybe it's a niece and nephew, maybe it's your partner, whatever it might be, and fill your heart filled with love, and then just expand that love and visualize that bubble being in this glorious, beautiful light.
Yeah.
If you want to, you can also visualize light coming down from the sun, from source energy, um, or God, or however you see that spiritual being, and bring it through your crown chakra, your top of your head, into your heart, and expand that light through the bubble. So what that will do then is anything that comes towards you that's negative, anything heavy, will be transmuted into that light and into that love. So you're not sending it back to them. You're not using a mirror to send that energy back. You're actually transforming that energy. And I've seen this, I see it work. I used to do it all myself all the time, especially if I'm going out shopping and there's a lot of people and there's a lot of heavy energy, especially through COVID.
Yeah.
And it worked for me, and it found that it works for a lot of clients that are open to it. So if that resonates with you, and you know you're going to go into some kind of toxic situation or environment, then just do that circle. Takes a couple of minutes, few breaths.
That is absolutely beautiful, and it's a step on from kind of like putting on your armor, you know, and kind of like deflect. You can't get me. That's still quite a combative stance, whereas that truly transformative, that brings through such a gorgeous energy within and around, and you know, dissolves the anxiety, dissolves the panic, dissolves the stress, just like, oh
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's just a very easy, simple exercise, and you will actually notice, if you're, and especially if you're an empath, you will notice the energy shift around you. It will shift other people's energy because you're at a place of peace and coming from a place of love and light. And it will have an impact. It'd be an interesting exercise for you to do when you're going to an environment that's a bit tricky, a bit challenging.
Yeah, or even kind of when you say like shopping, like sometimes, yeah, particularly cost of living. Sorry, and I do
What
do
was
not
that?
diminish.
Sorry, say that again.
Sorry, this is like cost of living and panic.
Cost of living, yes.
Everything. And it's not
yes.
to diminish. That is not to diminish the, you know, the hardships that people are facing in the UK at all. But yeah, I have international calls, and there's 70-80% inflation elsewhere in the world, and in Europe as well.
Yeah.
But we're kind of driven by this fear. We don't need to be driven by this fear, but there's this kind of fear and panic and anxiety all around at the moment. And it's just like, well, do I need to be part of that, or is there something that I can own and do and bring that might start to shift a little bit?
And that leads me to a good point, actually. Being an empath, you're not just necessarily picking up on one person's energy either. You're picking up on the general energy of what's going on. So I highly recommend you using that. Also reminding yourself that it's not yours. Another thing that helps empaths as well, because sometimes they'll take on the pain of somebody else, is to remind yourself that they have their own journey. That other person that you're feeling sad about has their own journey, and you never know where this particular situation is going to lead them. The potential and the possibility that's come from that feeling that what they're experiencing right now is another opportunity for them to evolve and grow and heal. So to feel heavy for somebody's growth, in effect, potential growth. So that's another way of looking at it, so that you don't feel like you have to carry somebody else's pain that's going through something quite that's struggling and finding things a bit difficult, because you don't know where that's going to lead, but there is always possibility and potential of where that could lead them.
Yeah, for many listeners who wanted to hear about toxic workplaces, we may have taken them in a very different direction. But actually, workplaces are communities with humanity of every different variety in, and so why do we treat it as a different community than our relationships at home or our family? And these are human systems, and when you bring ways of managing and working with and nurturing human systems into a different environment, it can really transform how it feels for everybody involved.
And I think if you go into a workplace, into your workplace, into a meeting, into a whether it's a Zoom meeting, whether it's a physical meeting, or you're just going into work, a good intention to set yourself in the morning or before you walk in is, how do I want to show up today? How can I help improve without carrying it, without feeling like it's your responsibility? But how can I make this day better?
Yeah.
How can I create a better environment?
Definitely. Oh, and when you get hit by it or hit by a negative, it's like, today's this day. Today we get to learn about how to deal with people in panic or how to deal with shouty people. It's like, that's what today's for.
And I loved what you said
like,
about
I'm terrible at my job.
Yeah. And I loved what you said. Sometimes you just need a break from that toxicity, so just go outside for a bit of fresh air. Even if it's if there's not anything around other than other buildings, just change the energy, your energy, by leaving the energy of that space that you're in. And give yourself and give yourself space and grace.
And it's okay, because you will be 100% more productive, 100% more creative, more collaborative, just for the sake of 2-3 minutes. This isn't an hour-long walk. It's not like a week off. It's you can reset really quickly.
Yes. And also, just another question popped up is, so someone's just come out, or there's something that's just happened in a meeting, or you just had a conversation with somebody, or you feel somebody else's energy. You can ask yourself, do I want to allow that thing that just happened, or that person, to affect the rest of my day? Is my mental, emotional well-being more important than feeling stuck in that energy for the day, for the week, for the month?
This is, I feel a book. So thank you, Jen. Thank you.
No,
really
thank
helpful.
you. No, that was really good. I know as I sort of took you different places, but I think that hopefully the listeners got some really good things from that.
So until next time.
Yes. Thank you for listening and watching. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to share, like, subscribe. If you think that this will help somebody, please share it with them, or share it on your own social media. Very much appreciated. And don't forget, we are on YouTube if you haven't seen us. So
you get to see me go.
You get to, and you'll get to meet Enzo as well. He makes a little cheeky appearance like he usually does. So thank you for listening. Till next time, take care. Ciao.